Hi there, welcome back again. So in today's video, I'll be showing you how to draft a dartless bodice block. So basically how to eliminate or remove darts from your basic bodice pattern. And I'm just going to start by saying that this is just one of the many other ways there is to eliminate darts from your pattern. So please do well to watch this video to the end. Like this video, share and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and let us get on with the tutorial. And I'm going to start with the front piece. So I have my pattern paper placed here, and from the top of the paper I'll mark down 0.5 inches, which is going to serve as a starting line and also as a shoulder line. I'll rule a straight line across that point right there, and then I'm going to mark down the rest of my other measurements. Starting from the starting line, I'll mark down my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10.5 inches. I'll mark my shoulder to my waistline, which is 17.5 inches. Now I'm going to use my ruler to just draw straight lines across. Next, I'm going to mark my waist to my hip line. So starting from my waistline, I'll mark down 8 inches, which is my hip line. And then I'm going to also draw a straight line across. Now to label all the lines I have drawn out, I have my shoulder line at the top. Next, I have my bust line, I have my waistline, and then I have my hip line last. So this pattern is going to stop on my hip line. Now I'm going to go over to the shoulder line, and I'll mark my shoulder to shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7.5 inches. I'll mark that right there, and I'll also measure my neck width. I'm working with 4 inches in this case, so I'm going to mark 4 inches right there. And on the shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I'll slant this to the 4 inches neck width. Next, I'm going to measure out my chest line. So starting from the shoulder line, I'm going to mark down 8.5 inches, which is my chest line. I'll confirm the shoulder measurement on this new chest line, so I'm just marking 7.5 inches again, and then I'm going to just extend this upwards to the starting line. Now I should have drawn out this chest line before making the shoulder slope, but it still works. Now I'm going to also extend this chest line inwards this way. Now I've drawn that out, I'll also go on to just label the chest line as well. The next thing I'll do is to draw out my armhole curve. So I'll measure from the shoulder slope to the chest line, and what I have there is 7.5 inches. I'll divide that line into 2 just to get the midpoint of the line, and it is about 3.75 inches. On that midpoint, I'll go in by 0.75 inches, and then I'm going to measure out my bust circumference measurements divided by 4. I'll mark it on the chest line, and I'm going to make my curve. So using my curve ruler, I'm just going to curve out my armhole curve from the chest line to the midpoint of that line, and then to the shoulder slope. Now to finish up with my neckline, I'm working with a neck depth of 3.5 inches. So from the starting line, I'll measure down 3.5 inches, and I'll make a curve to my neck width of 4 inches, drawing out my neckline. The next thing I'll do is to mark out my darts. So I'm going to mark my bust span measurement divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I'll mark that on my bust point line, on my waistline, and then on my hip line, I'm going to go up by 1 inch before marking my bust span measurement divided by 2. Now after marking that, I'm going to connect these 3 points with a straight line. Now on the waistline, I'll go on each side of this dart line by 0.5 inches. So this is just a normal dart. I'm going to take this upwards to the bust point line and downwards to the hip line this way. Now to mark out my body circumference measurements, on the chest line, I'll mark my bust span measurements divided by 4, and I'm not adding any allowance to this pattern. So on my bust point line, I'm also going to mark my bust circumference measurement divided by 4 as well. On the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference measurement divided by 4, which is 8 inches, and I'll replace my dart intake of 1 inch. On my hip line, I'll mark my hip circumference measurement divided by 4, and that is about 10.25 inches. I'll use my ruler to just connect the points together. So using my straight ruler, I'm just going to take it up this way, and I'll use my curve ruler to finish up from the waistline to the hip line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the measurements for my side dart. So the side dart is going to be on the bust point line, and the measurement for my side dart is my shoulder to waist in front minus my shoulder to waist behind. So my shoulder to waist in front is 17.5 inches and behind is 16 inches. So 17.5 minus 16 inches, so that difference is 1.5 inches. So that is my side dart measurement. So from the bust point line, I marked down 1.5 inches, and I'm just slanting this to meet the other dart legs. I hope you've gotten everything to this point. It is really easy. Now we've just created a basic bodice block. Also, in case you're making use of a shoulder dart, you can follow this exact process of eliminating darts from your pattern. It's the same thing, so just follow the same process if you're making use of a shoulder dart instead of a side dart. Now we've cut out all the excesses, it's time to start eliminating the darts. So I'll start by transferring this side dart to this center dart. I'm just calling this bust span measurement the center dart. So I'll first of all extend the middle dart leg to the end of the paper, and I'll go on to slash it upwards to the bust point. So I'm only cutting the center line, not the extensions on the side of the line, just the line in the middle. So I'll slash this to the bust point this way. I'll stop right there and I'll go on to cut off the side dart. So I'm going to completely remove this little triangle on the side, so cutting it and stopping at the bust point. Now before I take it off, I just want us to confirm the waist measurement. So measuring my waistline divided by 4 is 8 inches like I measured earlier, and I have 1 inch for my dart intake. That's why I have 9 inches here, but the actual measurement is 8 inches, so just take note of that. Now when I've cut off the side dart, I'll go on to just close up that area. I'll make use of my sellotape to do that. After sealing the side up, you can see how wide this center has become. Now I'm just going to fill up this space by placing a plain paper under it and then using my sellotape to just secure it down as well. After taping it down, I'll trim off the excesses of the new paper, and what we have done here was just to transfer the side dart from the side to the center. So we have not yet eliminated the side dart. Now to finally eliminate the side dart, I'm going to measure in 0.75 inches on the chest line. So just on this armhole line here, I'll go in by 0.75 inches. And I'll slant it to these dart legs. Making use of a longer ruler for this, I'm just going to place it from the armhole to the first dart leg. So I'm going to just draw a straight line from this 0.75 inches I went in by to the first dart leg. Now I'm going to do the same thing to this second dart leg. So from the armhole down to the second dart leg this way. And now after doing that, I'll go on to cut this off. So I'm just going to slash it and stop right at the armhole, trying not to cut it off completely. And then I'm going to take this piece off. Now when I take off the piece I have cut out, I'll close up this gap I have here, and I'll use my sellotape to hold these two pieces together. Now I know you can see that it is shorter on the side, so we're going to extend that part. So placing another paper under it, I'm just going to use my sellotape to hold it in place, and I'll just make a curve from the longer part to the shorter side. So I'm not extending it straight, I'm just going to make a slight curve this way from the part that is longer into the side. So the measurement on the side has not been taken off, that's why I'm not making it longer, I'm making a straight line. So please just pay attention to what I am doing. Now I'll cut off the excesses, and what we have been doing so far, all this cut and join that has been going on since, has just been to eliminate the side dart. So we first transferred the side dart to the center, and then we're able to eliminate it from there. But now the main dart, the center dart or bust span measurement, is still very much available. So I'm going to just take the measurement of the dart there, which is half inch on both sides, and that is 1 inch. I'm going to take it off from the side. So let us first confirm if our waist measurement has been altered. So placing my tape on the waistline, you're going to make use of the line that is toward the side of the paper. I still have my waist measurement divided by 4, which is 8 inches, and I have an extra 1 inch for my dart intake. Now I'm going to just mark in that 1 inch dart intake, and I'm going to slant this upwards into the armhole. So this is how I'm going to take off the bust span measurement dart. This is how I'm going to take off the main dart, and then I'm going to curve this downwards into the hip line. After making the curve, I'm just going to blend the curve I have on my waistline so it is not too sharp, and I'll go on to just trim off this little piece. Now we've been able to successfully eliminate the side dart and the main body dart. Now just to confirm our measurements, I'm going to place my waist circumference measurements divided by 4 on my waistline, and I have 8 inches there and it's accurate. Whereas on my bust point line, my bust circumference measurement divided by 4 is short of half an inch. So you can go on to replace this little shortage to be on a safe side. Maybe you're scared that it's going to be too tight eventually when you make the outfit, so you can go on to replace this shortage of half an inch. But I won't be replacing any shortage here because I have my bust circumference measurement accurate on my chest line, so it doesn't really affect the final outcome of my outfit by the time I am done sewing. So I'm just going to leave it there. And now on my hip line, I'm going to take my hip measurement divided by 4, which is 10.25, and I have it accurate on that part. So you can go on to replace it on your bust point line in case you're scared of shortage. Now we're done with the front. To draft out the back, I've placed my paper right here, and now I'm going to go in by 1.25 inches. This 1.25 inches is my zipper allowance. I'll roll a straight line there, and then from the top of the paper I'll mark down half an inch for my starting line and also to serve as the shoulder line. I'll roll a straight line across that point there, and then I'm going to go on to take the rest of the other measurements. So I'll start from the shoulder line. I'll mark my shoulder to shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'm starting from the zipper allowance point, so I'll mark 7.5 inches right there, and from that shoulder point I'll mark down my chest line of 8.5 inches. I'm confirming my shoulder measurement on this chest line. I'm going to draw a straight line upwards this way, and I'm going to take the chest line inwards this way. Next, I'm going to mark my neck width. I'm making use of a neck width of 4 inches, just like I did for the front, and a neck depth for the back I'm using 1.5 inches. I'll use my curve ruler to just connect it this way. Now on the shoulder line, I'll mark down 1 inch and connect my shoulder slope by slanting it to the neck width of 4 inches. The next thing I was supposed to do here was to draw out my armhole curve, but I don't know where my head was at, so I went on to mark out my chest line again, and then I marked my shoulder to my waistline. So my shoulder to waist behind is 16 inches. Remember, my shoulder to waist in front was 17.5 inches. So if you subtract my shoulder to waist behind from my shoulder to waist in front is 1.5 inches, and that's how I was able to have the figure for my side dart. Now I'll go on to just draw out my waistline this way, and then I'm going to go on to mark my waist to hip. So my waist to hip is 8 inches. Placing my tape on my waistline, I'm going to go down by 8 inches and draw a straight line as well. Now I'll mark my bust span measurement on this chest line point right here. My bust span measurement divided by 2. I marked it on the waistline also, and now on the hip line I'm just going up by 1 inch, and I'm going to connect these 3 points together. On the waistline, I'll go out on each side of the line by 0.5 inches, and I'll slant it upwards to the chest line and downwards to the hip line. It was at this point I realized I had not drawn out my armhole curve, so I'm just going to divide that line into 2. I'll mark the midpoint and I'll go in by 0.5 inches. I'll mark my bust circumference measurement divided by 4 on the chest line, and I'm going to draw out my armhole curve. After drawing out my curve, I'll go on to mark my body measurements. On the chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. I already have that there. On my waistline, my waist circumference divided by 4, and then the dart intake of 1 inch. And on my hip line, my hip circumference divided by 4. I'm not adding any allowance to this pattern, like I already said earlier. Now I'll use my rulers to just shape it up on the side. And now moving over to the zipper allowance area, I'm going to go on to take off the bulge. So on the waistline, I'm going in by half an inch. I'm just going to extend this hip line inwards, and on the hip line, on the zipper allowance line, I went up by 1 inch, and I will slant that 1 inch upwards to the waistline. And from this waistline point, I'm also going to slant it upwards into the starting line. So now I've taken off half an inch from this zipper allowance. Now when you're sewing this zipper allowance, when you're sewing your zipper on your outfit, you're not going to sew it with the remaining allowance. You're still going to use the initial allowance you kept for your zip, which in this case is 1.25 inches. So now I'm just going to further replace that half an inch that has been taken off for the zipper bulge. I'll replace it and I'll extend it into the main center back bodice. So you're going to sew it with your actual zipper allowance that you kept on paper. I hope you understand. Now I'll go on to just trim off all the excesses, cut out the sides, the armhole, the shoulder, and the neckline. Now to eliminate the dart here, instead of closing it up, I'm going to take it off from the side just like I did for the front. So I'm going to take my waist measurement divided by 4, which is 8 inches. And remember, I have my dart intake of 1 inch as well. So I'm just going to mark in that 1 inch dart intake and I'll slant it into the armhole this way. And using my curve ruler, I'm just going to make a curve from the waistline into the hip line. And I'm just going to go on to blend this waistline area right here so it's not too sharp. And I'll trim off that little excess I have there. Now we've eliminated the dart from the side, I'm going to go on to further take off some zip bulge. So since we're drafting this on paper, we have the luxury of taking off as much excesses we can. So I'm just going to go up on the waistline by 1/2 inch and I'll slant it into the dart line right there, and I'm going to make a slash to the waistline. I'm not cutting this off, and I'm going to just place the top part of the paper over the lower part, and I'll use my tape to seal it up this way. So I've just taken off some extra zip bulge. This way our back piece is perfect. Now bring in our front piece so we can compare if the sides match. In case you were wondering or thinking that the front would be a bit longer than the back, we're going to place the sides together this way, and you can see that the armhole, the waist and the hip all align properly. So this is everything for this tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to respond. Also, if you'd like to see a dress I made with this pattern, I'll leave the link in the comments so that you can check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video up to this point. Please do well to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye for now.